Calling this calling to order as we have a quorum present of the Community Impact Fee and Advisory Committee meeting. At this time, public comments, non-agenda items, public comments will be taken from the audience on a non-agenda related topic for the length of time not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Agenda item public comments will be taken from the audience on a non-agenda item and agenda items combined for the length of time not to exceed 5 minutes excuse me, per person on all items except for public hearing comments. On public hearing items must be made when the items come before the board, commission, or committee, and not to exceed 2 minutes per person. No action or discussion may be taken by the board, commission, or committee during the public comments on agenda items. To address the board, commission, or committee, please complete the yellow or white card and present it to the city staff designated prior to the meeting. Consent agenda item. Do I need to let them speak first? So we have Mr. Robert Patel.
Thank you very much. My name's Robert Bataille or Robert Battle or whatever you prefer. You guys do good work. I appreciate your efforts. I'm sorry that we live in an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. You don't get to really stand up for what we need. Just a couple things. I'm a big fan's not the right word. The comprehensive plan, I think, is a complete, utter waste of $318,000. City council can't even proofread the dang thing. But one part of it that might affect you guys is there's a page in there where they talk about our growth. And they think they have three numbers. They have 1%, 3%, and 5%. Does anyone think that's even remotely accurate? Well, Catellus doesn't. They say it's 7%, but of course that's complete preposterous too. If they go through and add up the subdivisions and multiply and divide and all that good stuff, our growth rate's probably 14, 16 plus %, which of course affects a lot of things. One thing that affects our roads is, of course, these ridiculous 380 chapter giveaways. Mainer's one of the few cities that steals from the poor and gives to the rich. Why we would ever give $20 million to HEB and Home Depot, which are $300 billion companies, is beyond me. And frankly, Mr. Timmerman, I'm kind of discouraged that you see, it sounds to me like you want $3.5 million. We're going to have to help you put in sewer pipelines. I don't see the point of that. Dairy Queen didn't need to do that. Hilton Hotel didn't need to do that. The Mercados don't need to do that. Why do we need to give Barth Timmerman $3.5 million? What's he's going to go away if we don't give it to him? I think that's foolish. Now, speaking of the comprehensive plan, this whole idea that they don't understand we have a historic district. We don't have urban roads down here. We don't need high density multi-use at all. That's ridiculous. We don't want 400 apartments over here. We don't want 95 townhomes on top of the graves. There are graves outside that fence. Graves. We need to embrace our history and make that our big shtick. We've been using the word downtown erroneously, and these developers think, oh, let's build it up, build it up, build it up. We don't want 6th Street Austin down here. We want quaint, historical. And we can have that, but we have to stop this ridiculous growth. This is the comprehensive plan, page 80. It says This is the best place in Maynard to double down on and invest in creating a sense of place and identity for the community. Go create your identity for that over there north of 290. We have an identity. It's quaint. It's history. Hard to believe. Hard to believe. Now, how do we stop it is my question. It's you guys really have to help, and I know you're worried because if you stand up strong and proud and strong and proud and true, they're going to kick you off this committee. But we have to do that, or else these developers are going to run all over us. We have a development person that's been here for 9 years. What have we done in 9 years? What do we have to show? You guys can't put a dog run in a park, and you have like over $500,000. You can't put a dog run in 10 years. They're spending $50,000 now to rebrand us. Did somebody tell them, hey, we just spent $318,000. Why don't you read the survey there? They can't even proofread it. I was here at the meeting. I videotaped it. This was a workshop. It was open to the public. There wasn't one public person there other than me. They couldn't even videotape it. What's it take to do that? You have to start a button, right? You have to push a button. Boy, that's tough. Beep. Okay, we're videotaping now. They don't want the people to know this. There's no communication from the city. I've never met one person that's ever even heard of the comprehensive plan. Not one single person. I'm not kidding. Including the mayor. They don't seem to know either. You know, he had to unbind it to sneak his letter in there. After 18 months, he couldn't write one letter. They had to sneak it in, and he had to backdate it. What's that say about these people? He couldn't even tell these new consultants that we had this plan. They asked about the vision. He couldn't remember the vision plan. Probably he was afraid if he said it out loud, I'd start laughing over here. Maynard's a regional leader with exceptional services. Who are they kidding? Come on. Let's start looking at ourselves with reality. We don't need to apologize for where we're at, but we have to live in a world of objective reality. Let's stop trying to polish something that really isn't what we need. We don't want these buildings here. We don't want high density. They think if there's an empty space, well, let's put high density.
Time's up.
Okay, well, thank you. I enjoyed that time. And good luck with the rest of your meeting. Oops, I'll leave that there.
We'll be moving on to consent agenda item number 1. Consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve the Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee minutes for May the 10th, 2023, Impact Fee Advisory Committee regular session, and June 14th, Community Impact Fee Advisory Committee in regular session.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes for both May 10th and June 14th.
I second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, a second by Timmerman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Move on to regular agenda, discussion of roadways, impact service unit calculations and vehicle mile calculation. Discussion on the growth in vehicle miles between 2023 and 2033, and discussion of the roadway impact fee calculation overview and next steps.
Hi, Pauline Gray with GBA City Engineer. We're just going to limit the discussion to the service unit and vehicle mile calculations for this one. At the next meeting, the goal is to discuss what the impact fees would actually amount to and compare them to other cities. For this one, we're just going to recap what a service unit is, how we came up with the calculations, and then we'll use that to set the fees. And then at the next meeting, we will more than likely decide whether or not we want to send the roadway impact fees to council. So, and hopefully we'll have more people here. So we had previously discussed service units, and basically they're used for impact fees and its vehicle mile. To determine the cost per unit, we use the estimated growth between 2023 and 2033, which is the same growth rate that we use for the water and wastewater impact fees. And remember, at one of our previous meetings, we set that at 7% growth rate. And basically, we have to categorize each either undeveloped or developed land and undeveloped land categorized into the different categories, and it's either residential or non-residential. Residential would be multifamily, single family, townhomes, and non-residential would be retail, service, and basic service. So retail would be such things for like sale of goods, so it'd be like grocery stores, restaurants. Service would be somebody that provides like a personal or professional service. This would include like city facilities, professional offices, and educational uses. And basic would be activities that actually make goods and services that would be exported out of the city, like manufacturing and construction and transportation stuff, where it's produced here, but it's sent out to other places. So the first step is to come up with the transportation demand factor. And we use the ITE trip generation manual. And it's the 11th edition. That's the current one. And it basically gives you an estimated number based on them reviewing previous like traffic studies and everything. They come up with it. It's like, okay, for single family, multifamily, like residential, it's per dwelling unit. For commercial, like the services, and non-residential, it's square foot of building or other corresponding units. It just depends on the use for, because obviously commercial usage would have higher traffic rates than manufacturing. So the origin destination reduction is used to adjust the average trip length because say somebody leaves their house, so they get counted once leaving for work, and then they would get counted again coming back from work, but then say they stopped at the grocery store on the way home. So it reduces it so we're not double counting trips. And let me know if you have any questions. So, and then I skipped one. I did. So the transportation demand factor, basically you set the maximum trip length, but that is based on the service unit. As y'all recall, when we first started this, we split the city into 3 service areas. So it varies. Service area 1 is the max trip length is 2 miles. For area 2, it's 3. And for area 3, it's 4. And area 3 is the one that's out to the east, so it's larger than the other 2. So there's a bunch of calculations that you can do to get these numbers. And basically we took the numbers from the ITE and we came up with what the transportation demand factor is for residential, single family, multifamily, basic, service, and retail. And you use that in your calculations. And the next one would be the existing vehicle miles. So we had to go into each service area and get count the number of houses in each area, the existing commercial or non-residential, and split that up by category and square footage for each of the service areas. And from that, we came up with existing miles based on what's currently out there. So the vehicle miles are calculated by multiplying the demand factor, whether it's single family, multifamily, there's 2 different numbers for that, by the total number of dwelling units. So say we had 700, then you would multiply that by whatever the demand factor is for single family, and that's how you get the existing vehicle miles. The non-residential vehicle miles were calculated by estimating the square footage. We did use site plans if we had them. If not, we had to go in there and do it the old school way of tracing stuff and seeing what the area is. So it is just an estimate because, you know, we didn't have construction drawings for everything that's out here. And so basically we added the residential and non-residential together, and that gives us the total existing vehicle miles for each area. And then we looked at the future vehicle miles. So basically that is set for the 10-year growth projection like we did for water and wastewater. And we did it for each service area. So we're estimating 15,787 vehicle miles will be added in service area 1, 12,312 in 2, and 13,503. And basically what we did there was, if we knew something was coming in, we did an estimate and say, okay, this development is going to come in, it's going to have X number of houses. So then we would use the demand factor, multiply that by the estimated number of houses, and that's how we got that. And so the total vehicle miles is combined for residential and non-residential. So this table kind of breaks it down a little bit more. It's, you know, so service area 1 had 1,500 family units and 1,000 multifamily. And so we did the calculations for that. And then we broke out for basic, service, retail. And basically, so this is the future one. And so we just estimated, okay, you know, this development, we know is going to have this number of houses. If we didn't have like a number, there's so kind of the same calculations we used for the water and wastewater. We're like, okay, this is 22 acres. If we say they have quarter acre lots, how many lots could they potentially? Like I said, this is estimate because we don't know. You have a question? Yeah. So non-residential future. That's the trip demand factor. So basically, if you go back to, let me see if I can find what page it's on. We calculate that based on, it is on page 17. And so basically we use the formula down there, and we figured out the demand factor for residential, single family, multifamily, basic, service, and retail. So you take that demand factor, and that's what we multiply with the proposed numbers by, and that's how we get the total vehicle miles. And it's broken out between residential and non-residential. So like, if you,
Sorry.
yeah, so you would,
Example number 2 would be 2584
4
times
0.04
plus
Yeah,
224
times 2.19, and that gives you the 10,930. And so it'd be the same thing. And like service area 3 right now, there's no proposed multifamily that we know about. Like I said, this it'll be like the water and wastewater impact fees, where as new stuff comes in, we'll have to update these calculations. This is, what we're projecting for future growth. So it really is an estimate. And that's why at the beginning of this process, y'all voted on using the 7% growth factor. So.
Sorry. There's a number above it, 0.94 on the TDF, 4.04 below it.
Yeah, so if you go back to that page 17, it's just a reference because the 0.94 is the trip rate for single family residential. The 0.51 is for multifamily. Then the 0.65 is for basics, non-residential, 1.44 service and retail. It's just a reference basically to use what it just refers to what we used back in that other table, just so we know we're consistent.
Service area 3 is the one that's on the east side of town, right?
Yes, I believe so. I think the map is.
Okay. Because the maps we have, I don't know if they've been updated or the boundaries have changed, but
Oh, yes. And definitely the east will have to be updated because the impact fees, just like water and wastewater, can only be located within city limits. So if there is something that we need to adjust, let me know. We can adjust that service area.
okay. I just know like the Weir tract with their multifamilies in that service area, and the Ginsel tract, and the Volker Lane one that's trying to work through.
Hmm.
So there's
Okay.
there's planned multifamily in service area 3.
Okay, yeah. If you want to just send me those, I can have those updated. And we can update the future mile calculations for those areas. As long as they're in the city limits currently. Is the Volker Lane one?
That one's not.
Okay,
Right.
yeah. So we just need a list of which ones are currently in the city limits, because that's the only thing you can use for these calculations. So the next step is going to be to come up with the roadway impact fee calculations. We have a list of CIP projects. I'm going to double check and compare to TIAs that have recently been approved. Basically, that's how we came up with the CIP list, is based on TIAs for streets where the city is the owner of the streets. So we can't use these funds for 973 or 290 or any Travis County roads. It has to be city roads. And so I believe we're up to date, but I'm going to double check so we have the correct calculations. And that's how we came up with a cost estimate for each area. So the first step for the roadway impact fee calculation is calculate the total number of vehicle miles added to the surface area based on capacity, length, and number of lanes in each project. So like I said, next time I'll have the projects broken out and have it say, okay, this one we're going to expand the road from 2 lanes to 5 or something. And then we'll have a cost for that, and we'll use that to set the impact fee. Because basically what is each service area will have a set amount that we come up with for CIP projects, and you use that amount and divide by the number of vehicle miles to get the impact fee per vehicle mile or per service unit. And so basically step 2, we've got the existing demands. Like I said, we have to remove anything for 290 and 973 and any county roads. So basically, we looked at the number of facilities that have been identified in the CIP that currently have traffic. And basically, it's going to display the total amount of capacity along with the facilities currently being used by existing traffic. And then we say, okay, well, we're going to increase it by this, so we need to install a right turn lane or something. And we've already done the total vehicle miles of existing, but we have to break it out into deficiencies. So I don't know how familiar you are with TIAs, but when we get TIAs in, they do a level of service for each intersection that is assigned. We meet either with Travis County, just the city, and TxDOT, and we come up with a scope, and we tell them what intersections to look at. And so they basically take that intersection. They're like, okay, this one is a level of service C, which as long as it's above, D, you're okay. And then they add their traffic in, and if it makes the quality lessen, like it goes down to an F, which happens a lot along 290, then they're like, okay, to help, with that, then we'll be like, okay, we'll, add a right turn lane in to clear up some of the traffic. And so that's what we have to look at next is, okay, when projects get added, where are these deficiencies? And like I said, we can only look at city roads, unfortunately. And then, uh-oh. I'm hitting the arrow. There it goes. Now I'll probably skip past it. So step 4 is going to be calculating the net amount of vehicle miles of capacity added. So that would just be with the estimate, kind of like we estimated the number of LUEs that were going to be added for the water and wastewater impact fee. You figure out how many miles we estimate to be added in that 10-year span. And so you divide the total vehicle miles by the cost by the total vehicle miles, and you come up with the impact fee amount. Okay. So step 5, basically, it's just taking all the projects that would come up with the CIP and calculate it. And then we do the net cost for adding the additional capacity to clear up the traffic issues, to basically have the level of service, go from maybe a D to a B or something. And so basically on this part, we just identify the total cost of the roadway that's required to meet existing needs. And then we will take the total vehicle miles of demand calculated for the next 10 years based on the growth projection. And this will estimate the total number of vehicle miles in each service area. So say we know a supermarket's going to come in, we're like, okay, well, they're going to take access off of probably 290, but if they take access off the city road, then we can look at it like, okay, so this, I'll have X number of vehicle miles they're adding. And we'll do that for each proposed project that we know about. And then we'll just estimate it for areas that are undeveloped, but that could develop in the future. Okay, well. You got it? So step 9 is doing the percent capacity added that can be attributed to new growth in the service area. And that's required by Chapter 395, which governs impact fees. So it's the same process that we follow with the water and wastewater. Basically, you use that to say vehicle miles added by proposed roadway do not exceed the amount that is needed to accommodate the growth. So we can't say, oh, well, we only need to add a turn lane and then decide, oh, we'll just make it a 5-lane highway. We can't do that unless it shows that it's required within the next 10 years. Step 10 is the cost of roadway impact fee that can be attributed to new growth. And basically, you don't include financing, would be the cost to the city to get the work done. And that would be the cost recovered by impact fees. And then we have to come up with a way to credit, because there are some developments out there that have been partially developed, and so they haven't been in there yet, but they've already done like TIA improvements. Then obviously we don't want to double charge them to where they have to pay for TIA improvements and impact fees. And then you take the total cost of the roadway impact fee projects, and then you take any credits out for previous contributions made by developers. So say Area 1 has $3 million, but the city's already received $1 million in improvements, so it would be $2 million would be the total impact fee cost for that project. This is the roadway impact fee map. We still need to update a couple of the streets. They were not updated to show that they are not city streets, and we will adjust the service area number 3 to add those areas. I think some of the areas are in the map. I just think they weren't added into the calculations. And then this one just shows the different areas that are currently being developed and where we came up with the projects, and there was supposed to be another table attached that listed what these projects are. And so basically, any of the projects that are listed on here are ones that have come out of TIAs that have been approved by the city. And I know that's a lot of information. So does anybody have any questions?
We're able to include roads from our thoroughfare plan, right?
Yes.
I don't think there'll be too many, but there could be.
Yeah, yeah, because some of the thoroughfare plans stuff for future, some of it's not in the city limits right now, but we can add in whatever's within the city limits. The issue is you have to be able to show that there's something coming in to justify like widening something. So it's great to show it on the thoroughfare plan, but if we don't have a project that is going to produce enough traffic to require that, then technically you can't use impact fee funds for that. So, but yeah, no, we can look at it and see which ones are on there and then compare to the TIAs.
How do you show that? Do you have to have like a master TIA or something, or how do you show that?
That's what we're working on to figure out how to show it, because there's several TIAs out there, and some of them show city roadway improvements, but if they happen to be on a TxDOT roadway or Travis County, typically they get the money, so the city doesn't get any of those funds. So we're coming up with the list of those projects because we have estimated costs, but we have to adjust them because some of these TIAs are several years old. So you have to go back and kind of figure out, okay, well, this, turn lane's probably not this amount anymore. It's going to be increased by that much. And so that's what we're doing. We're reviewing all the TIAs and pulling out anything that's pertinent to any city roads. And then we'll have a list, and that'll be for each area. We'll have a list of projects required and what their estimated cost is. And that's what we'll use towards calculating the impact fees for each area.
Level of service, how would you know that?
That's it. That they show in the TIA because the TIA shows existing, and then they show like phase one within 2 years. But they will show the TIA typically shows, okay, once it's fully built out, this is what, and they look at each intersection. So like, okay, well, when they do phase one, it doesn't affect traffic that much, but when they get to phase two or full build out, then other stuff is required because it will reduce the service.
So it's all based off old. It's based off TIAs from the past. It's not based off a master TIA or something like that.
No,
Okay.
the city doesn't have one of those. Yeah, we're just basing it on TIAs. We do have some newer ones that have come in, and we do have updates to some of the intersections, but the newer ones are required to include background projects. So some of the newer stuff will have like some of the older developments in there. And so because some of the stuff, if it's already, something's already built out, then we know that traffic count right now that they're getting at that intersection's not going to change for an older project because nothing else is coming in. So, but then if there's some areas that aren't developed yet, then we would include those. Like it's we're limited in what we can do based on state regulations, and like I said, but obviously if something was like a price from 2016, it's probably way underpriced for what it would be currently. So that's what we have to look at too, is okay, they estimated it to be 300,000, but now it's probably more like 700,000 or more. So we look at current construction costs. But I mean, that changes every month too. So like I said, this is, we have to go with information that we have on hand, and like the water and wastewater impact fees, we're going to have to update the roadway impact fee. Because just like for water and wastewater, there's stuff that we know that's coming down the line, but it's not in the city limits, so we can't add any of that stuff in right now. So be prepared because we will probably be back here in the near future. So hopefully we'll get this wrapped up first.
You have any more questions? Do we just need a motion?
Yeah, this was just to kind of go over stuff. There's no action that needs to be taken at this point.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? 7:37.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
I got a motion by Mr. Meyer, second by Ms. Cernvo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?